Hi, good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the GUI crew, Hafiz and Ibnu for this tonight's invitation to Tech TARIK. Okay, so I'll just give a short introduction of myself. My name is Hakim. I'm a design engineer, and actually, the first thing is why did I actually embark on this project? So actually, what happened was one day I was actually on YouTube browsing around, and I found a trailer of James Cameron's recent expedition. It's called Deep Sea Challenger. So after watching that trailer, I got very interested and curious about how did a man, or so-called how did someone actually privately funded his own expedition. So he actually built his own submersible and managed the expedition, and managed to actually see the deepest part of the ocean. And that got me thinking, and I thought like, hey, if someone who's able to actually without with the determination and the curiosity to actually to really want to explore something, I think there's always if there's a will, there's a way. So after that particular trailer that I watched, I actually tried to find the actual documentary, and I watched it. I was actually blown away. It's like it's true what Hafiz has mentioned early on. The world's ocean is so vast, yet it's only 5% explored. And watching the documentary really blew my mind, because I was telling myself, if I could have something to actually give myself a glimpse of what's underneath the ocean. Because look at Singapore, we're an island and we are surrounded by so much water, and I feel it's a waste that not much exploration has been done. I mean, for example, Dr. Melin, I think she's privileged because her job enables her to dive, and explore, see lots of different coral reefs. I mean, for myself, that's not my day job, and I don't have the so-called the ability to dive because I don't have a diving license. But then I was telling myself, how can technology actually bridge that gap between someone who's really, really curious and someone who actually wants to know what's really underneath at the bottom of the ocean. So I went around, and then I found this particular so-called like a platform. It's called OpenROV. And actually what OpenROV does is actually it's made of many so-called interested people who likes to build ROVs. So ROVs are actually remotely operated vehicles, but one thing about this group of people, they actually do it open source. There isn't like any so-called high cost to it, because what they normally do is actually they find off-the-shelf parts, and they can discuss various ideas to build their own craft to bring it underwater. So after lots of research and lots of finding, I kind of like told myself, you know what, it's time for me to build this ROV. So what I did was I kind of sourced the net and found different design ideas, and I found that this OpenROV, the one that's currently in front of you, it's one of those robust designs which actually have been tried and tested before. So what happened was I thought I could buy the kit from this particular online source and start building. But then what happened was they said, I emailed to them, I made payment, and then they came back to me and said, oh, I'm sorry, we can't sell the kit right now because we do not have all the parts. And I was like, what? I feel like all psyched up, after reading, researching, I was about to start my so-called my underwater adventure, and they told me, oh, you got to wait for 2 months before the part comes. I said, what? Come on. Okay, then because of that, then it hit me. Because I was telling myself, why do I actually need that kit to build my own ROVs? So that's when I read furthermore. I mean, I read out and I discovered that actually you can actually build everything from scratch, because the instructions are all out there. You just have to read slowly and find out how to piece all the different parts together. So I kind of discovered that actually in Singapore we have many different so-called workshops that does different kind of fabrication, and all you need is just so-called the right know-how, the right parts, and it all started as an adventure. So what happened was throughout one whole month, I kind of like go online, design certain parts, get it fabricated in Singapore. So there's this particular so-called like a fabrication shop in MOQ Industrial Estate. What they did was they do a lot of laser cutting. So actually, most of the parts over here actually all made of acrylic and an aluminum sheet, which were actually laser cut in different sorts of sizes. And all the electronics were actually found or bought online, because in a nutshell, this ROV consists of a very simple system. It has 3 thrusters, 2 of which are actually horizontal thrusters, and one's a vertical thruster. And it's encased in a clear acrylic tube, whereby you have the microcontrollers. So microcontrollers are actually just circuit boards or actually electronics that helps to communicate between the different parts of the ROV and also the user. And the final thing which actually make the connection of the bridge is actually the ability to view what's underneath. So what I did was I actually kind of hacked off-the-shelf USB camera and kind of plug it or connect it to the microcontroller board, and actually it enables anyone to actually to view what's underneath or beneath the ocean. So long story short, it took me about say a couple of weekends before I got all the parts together and I decided to assemble it. And once I assembled the ROV, I was very excited because finally I've got something which I can actually use and go exploration. So lo and behold, I went to a friend's house. He has a pool in his condominium, and I tried. And after I realized that my ROV was actually negatively buoyant. So what happens means is I've forgotten because the actual blue plans or the actual plans required the outer shell to be made of a type of plastic. Apparently in Singapore they don't have the plastic, and I substituted with aluminium. So that actually made the thing a bit more heavy than normal. So when I put it, I put it sank. Then I thought, okay, that's normal because when it's sink, then I could actually let it explode. Then when I kind of raised it up, it did go up. But then when I stopped it, then I said, why did it even sink below? Then I realized it was actually negatively buoyant. So okay, long story short, I had to actually do a bit of trimming. Or so-called what I did was I put a couple of styrofoam to make it, now it's neutrally buoyant. So what happens now is regardless of its depth, the ROV actually maintains its depth. So the next thing was after the testing in the swimming pool, my next test was I brought it to Bedok Reservoir because I live in the east, and I thought, you know what, Bedok Reservoir could be a interesting starting point, where I can actually discover, or I was hoping to see something underneath, in the reservoir because okay, you know what, let's go ahead, yeah. So I went there on a Sunday afternoon, all hot and sunny, and I put it down. And it descended. Okay, it was fine. It was neutrally buoyant. It kind of worked as what I expected to. But then what I didn't expect was actually it turned out to be that reservoir doesn't have any sea life at the bottom of the ocean. It was just full of algae, and you just see lots of algae with brackish water. Okay, so you know what? And I mean, yeah, it was an interesting thing because who knew that actually? I was expecting some fresh water, in my imagination, some kind of fishes, or I don't know what, tadpoles or what, but then apparently that was all fantasy. So yeah, so long story short, so that was my adventure for this my open ROV. So perhaps I'll end off my sharing session with a short demonstration of sorts. Yeah. Okay, unfortunately I can't connect the lightning cable because it's actually a bit bulky, so actually it will actually obstruct the USB cable. But what I'll do, I'll just show the screen of the monitor. So maybe perhaps after this sharing session you guys can just take a look over here. So actually, what you're seeing right now is actually actual footage of what's streaming through the webcam. But however, I think it was hibernating, it shut off by itself, so I'm trying to restart it anyway. So actually, there are very basic controls for this ROV system. So what you can do, actually, you can actually adjust the angle or the pitch of the camera, so that actually, when you are descending or surfacing, the camera angle can actually be elevated up or downwards. And at the same time, it's because it's a very basic design. So the movement of this ROV is very simple. It just goes up and down. It goes forward and backward, and it turns anti-clockwise or clockwise. So, and it's a very basic so-called setup. And the last thing is actually it has lights, onboard lights, because as you descend deeper, it gets darker. So lights can be controlled to give visibility for the darker spaces. Yeah. So I guess at the moment it takes some time to start up, but perhaps maybe after the entire session, you guys can just come and have a go with it. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.